This is Tim here with earcandycabs.com, earcandytv.com. We really appreciate you guys watching these videos. This answers a lot of questions in regards to our input jack selections for the guitar cabinets. We have single mono input with parallel out, which is your single mono input, which will run to either both speakers or a single speaker in a 1 or 2 12 cab. When you have a single mono input, that's it. You've got a single mono input, and you plug in your speaker cable from your guitar amp into the single mono input on the jack plate on the cab, and you're up and running. Now, a single mono input with a parallel out is exactly that. It's where on the back of the jack plate you will have a set of wires paralleled to another jack, and you can then daisy chain or parallel another speaker cabinet from this speaker, taking in consideration this was a speaker cabinet. You could parallel from or daisy chain from your amplifier to your cabinet, then out of your cabinet into another cabinet. That's called daisy chaining. In parallel, that's going to drop your ohm load. So if you have two 16 ohm cabinets and you do that, you're going to be running an 8 ohm load on your amplifier. If you have two 8 ohm cabinets and you do that, you're going to be running a 4 ohm load on your amplifier. Now, we also have what's called a stereo mono combo input, which is where you have a left, a right, and a mono, which in effect is exactly what that is. It's for running stereo, where you have two outputs, two individual outputs, an A and a B output on your amplifier, and they're separate volume controls, they're separate transformers, they're separate amplifiers, and that's your stereo left and right. So if you just plug one speaker cable into the left input, it's only going to run the left speaker, and that's it. If you unplug it and plug it into the right, it's only going to run the right speaker, and that's it. They're individual. You can do it like that. They're not tied in together to where the right is mono unless you have something plugged into the left one and all these crazy configurations I read about. Then the mono is the input, the parallel input that runs both the left and the right speaker. Then we have what's called a 4 and 16 ohm load combo jack, where you have parallel and series wiring options within the jack itself, where you would use two 8 ohm speakers, and you have one parallel circuit and one series circuit. So you, between two 8 ohm speakers in parallel, you have a 4 ohm input, and in series you have a 16 ohm input. Then we have what's called a super jack, which is where you have all four. You have your left and right 8 ohm stereo inputs, a 4 ohm mono, and a 16 ohm mono. I just don't have one built to show you guys, but we do have that also. Now, the difference in our cabinet wiring and just about everyone else's is all of our cabinet wiring is done by hand, point to point, with silver solder and nice thick 12 gauge speaker cable. We don't use this crazy, ridiculous 22 gauge, like telephone line grade speaker cable. We use stuff that's nice and thick to ensure that your amplified tone is going to flow very freely and very cleanly on the way to the speakers. Now, the other thing that's different about our wiring, if you'll notice, is there is none of these switches to change the ohm load. Now, this is it's a switch that you can use to change the ohm load. You've got tabs that within this switch housing, when you change the switch, it has very small conductors that switch from tab to tab that would change the ohm load. I do not believe in these. I do not think they belong in speaker cabinets for guitars, because I don't want my guitar tone coming down to a tiny little piece of nickel plated Chinese metal like that after I go spend all my money on expensive speakers and cabinetry and guitars and pickups and cables and all that stuff. This is going to be my weakest link in the chain. So we don't do these. We actually do what I refer to as transmission wiring. Everything's directly point to point, hand wired with a signal flow, no thin tin switches, and this way you get a lot cleaner, clear, fatter tone, and more pure wiring. Our wires are the same distance from the jack to the speakers, so the picohertz resistance is exactly the same. We're pretty nerdy about the way we do things here at Ear Candy Cabs. So that is the difference and an explanation of our wiring jack plates compared to others that have the switch involved, that are what I call tone robbers. Now then, I've got quite a few emails about these things, these guys right here, speaker tabs. These are kind of cool if you're experimenting with speakers to try to experiment and see what speaker you're going to like best. What you do with these things is you just take and you stick it on the end of a strip speaker wire, and then you crimp this down, and in effect, creates a very quick connect to hook up to your speaker, like so. These are great for speaker experimentation, but I don't recommend them for permanent speaker install, because they can vibrate loose and vibrate off. And if you're on stage in front of 1,000 people and playing at 90 watts and that vibrates off, you're going to have a couple disasters happen. First, you're not going to have any tone coming out of your cabinet. Second of all, when that falls off, you lose your ohm load and your resistance to your amplifier. And if it's turned way up, what's going to happen is what happened to that light bulb in our other video. It's going to pop. That's not good. So I highly recommend hard soldering all your speaker connections within your cabinets, and that's what we do here when we install your speakers. If you order your cabinet loaded with speakers, everything's hard soldered with our style of transmission wiring. No switches, super clean, super tight, super fast, free tone, and that's what it's all about. We really appreciate you guys watching the videos. If you have any questions concerning any of this stuff, please feel free to ask in a comment on the video. Respond with a video response. We're here to answer any questions you guys may have. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.